Es blitzen, die Stählernen schwingen, die starken Motoren sie singen, denn dröhnend und donnernd im Takt, das Lied, das im Herzen uns packt. So jagen die kühn und verwegen, der Sonne dem Sieg entgegen, in treuer Kameradschaft verschweißt, in Völkers und Richthofens Geist. Es donnern unsere Motoren, ihr eisernes Lied in die Welt. Wir sind dazu auserkoren, wenn mancher von uns auch fällt. Wie des Wohltanns wilde Heere, brausen wir über die Meere. Wir werden immer weiter fliegen, denn wir wollen für Deutschland siegen. Es blitzen, die stählernen schwingen, die starken.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Fly From Home. Catman here with something a bit different for you today. Those of you familiar with the channel know that I quite often do little review flights and in-depth reviews of aeroplanes that I have at least some idea of how to fly in real life. Those of you who aren't familiar with the channel, I'm a flying instructor in real life. It's my full-time job for all of my sins, and I try to bring some of that knowledge into Flight Simulator with me to try and give you a bit of a heads up on what add-ons are good and which ones aren't. Now, what I'm going to be doing today is attempting to fly something that I have absolutely no knowledge of at all and absolutely zero relevant experience. So if you're expecting me to come up with lots of kind of anecdotes and real-world knowledge to back this up, unfortunately, I think you should probably click off the video now because I have no idea what I'm doing. Because of course we have in front of us here the FlyingIron Mk BF109 G-6, which was released about a week ago, I think. It's not on the marketplace yet. It's on the FlyingIron website, but I very much encourage you to go and buy it from their website if you do want this aeroplane, because it gives them a slightly higher cut of the profits, I believe. So if you want to reward their hard work with a little bit of patronage, then that's the best way to do it. Anyway, what is this thing? Well, any of you familiar with FlyingIron know that they've come out with a couple of really aeroplane noises, really good warbirds for Microsoft Flight Simulator in the last sort of year or two. The original one was the Spitfire Mk IX, which I'm a huge fan of. I know you've not seen me fly it on the simulator, but the Spitfire is one of my favourite all-time aeroplanes. So I went out and got that as soon as it came out, and I've been attempting to get at least reasonably good at flying it ever since. I'm still terrible, but hey-ho. So I thought I'd go out and buy this as soon as I could, really, as soon as I could spare the funds. Because undoubtedly it would be a good product, and spoiler alert, it is. Now, I've got a few little bugbears with it, but for the most part it is really good. It's got a lot of complexity because the 109 is a pretty complex aircraft. I'm not going to bore you too much about the real aeroplane stories about it. I'm sure anyone with at least a passing interest in aviation knows what a BF-109 is, but it was Germany's primary fighter interceptor throughout the Second World War, from the very beginning right until the very end. This particular version, the G-6, was about 1943, I believe it came out. Various different improvements and enhancements over the original version. Some of the distinctive things for the G-6 were these blisters on the canopy here, which somebody with a sense of humour has painted some little eyes on. These were actually to cover the breech blocks of the, I think, 13mm machine guns, which are these things in the top of the nose here. It also has a 20mm cannon that fires out through the middle of the hub here, and interestingly, it sits inside the V of the engine, or it sits through the middle of the engine block, which is quite strange actually for a modern, well, for a fighter of this era. Most of the time, guns were mounted in the wings. Quite rarely quite rarely guns were mounted through the nose, but it allowed the pilot a really good aim, because he could basically just look straight down the nose of the aeroplane and shoot where he was looking, as opposed to having them out in the wings and having a sort of a bigger spread of fire. The engine's quite really the aeroplane's strongest suit. It's got really quite a technologically advanced engine for the time. It's a supercharged V12 water-cooled engine. Interestingly, it was inverted, so it's upside down. So instead of the V shape being like a Y, it's like an upside down Y, and that's why the exhausts are kind of so low on the canopy. I think that's the reason for it. Anyway, canopy cowling is what I meant. So yeah, really clever aeroplane. It's got automatic mixture, automatic propeller control, all sorts of clever stuff. But there are a lot of things that are quite sort of quirky and weird, as a lot of military technology produced by Germany in the Second World War had. A lot of it was kind of complicated for being complicated's sake, which perhaps wasn't the best idea when you're dealing with having to train new pilots and get them up to speed as quickly as possible. Having an aeroplane which is needlessly hard to get used to maybe was not the best plan, but never mind. So that's a little bit about the aircraft. What about this representation in the simulator? Well, it's really in depth. Now, I obviously don't know enough about BF-109s to say if it's quote-unquote study level or not, but it certainly has pretty much every system in the aircraft modelled and working as it should do, including things that that really they didn't need to include at all. So fantastic job on the part of Flying Iron. We've got a little tablet thing here which can help us all sorts of different stuff. We've got checklists on here. We've got a helpful little V-speed reference card here. Now, you'll notice that a lot of these are in kilometers an hour, and that's because the airspeed indicator is in kilometers an hour, and the altimeter's in meters. So if you're Russian or Chinese, then this is going to seem pretty familiar to you, but for the rest of us, that's completely alien, and it often confuses me enormously. Live data, so you've got all sorts of info about the aircraft's configuration, how much fueling got on board, all that kind of stuff. Stats, so various different little charts showing G-force, altitude, all that kind of stuff. You can change your load here, so you can set it up for medium range, short range, long range. We'll go for medium range. So, does that put a drop tank on us? Oh, it's put a drop tank on us. Look at that. So just like the Flying Iron Spitfire, we can add a drop tank to the aircraft and select that and it goes back away again. Obviously with associated performance impact on the aeroplane as well. There's an autopilot. Obviously the real aeroplane doesn't have an autopilot, but there is a little cheat autopilot, as it were, that Flying Iron have added, just so you can turn it on and, I don't know, go to the toilet or grab yourself a cup of tea or something on a long flight. Pretty handy. This is the workshop part, so you'll notice that some of these green bars are actually a little bit depleted. That's because I've been flying around and trying to practice how to not crash on takeoff and landing, and it's actually depleted some of the life of my spark plugs, for example, there. So really, you've got a similar sort of maintenance system to a lot of the more advanced aeroplanes in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and it keeps track of all this kind of stuff. It will fail the engine on you, it will fail landing gear, it will fail all sorts of different things. I've had engines explode on me in a shower of white smoke and all sorts of horrendous stuff. So it's really quite in-depth maintenance system and wear system on the airplane. Settings, we've got various different options here. We can we've got a little Garmin 430 on here, but if we want rid of it, we can put the I believe it was a reflector gun sight up on here, and you can see the little control panel for it. We'll stick with the GPS because we're not going to be shooting at anyone today. We can have the original canopy or the earlier canopy. So the original canopy, you'll notice, is quite heavily framed. You've got these lines here, quite thick frames on the top here. If we go for this canopy, you can see it's actually much more open, less framing, and it's got this kind of curve to the back of it. I think that looks better, and also it improves visibility an awful lot, which is very important when you're as incompetent as I am. So we're going to leave that version of the canopy on there. We can hide the pilot, hide the control column, hide the spinning prop. We can install a tropical air filter, which is, ooh, look at that. Comes with its own umbrella. An extension to the air scoop intake on the left-hand side of the cowling. You can see it comes all the way out here. It's to keep sand and all sorts of other stuff out of the engine. Get rid of that. We can go for simplified ground handling, which basically just gives it a direct steering tail wheel. Of course, as with most tailwheel aircraft, it's a castering tailwheel on this aircraft. So it's quite a big handful to get used to, but we're going to stick with the full difficulty because I'm a masochist. Install weapons, so we can take the I don't know if it changes. Yeah, it does actually. You can see the MG 151s or whatever they're called have disappeared out of the top of the cowling there, so we can get rid of them. But putting them back in, obviously, puts them back on the model and also adds the weight to the aircraft. We can have a radio and a transponder, so we can get rid of or add that. So this little unit down here, obviously, this is a recreation of, in the current config, an aircraft which has been restored in the modern era and has various little concessions to modern flying. So it has a transponder and a VHF radio down there, and the little 430 up here. But if we wanted to go full World War II, we could get rid of both of those things. Realism settings, so you could get rid of the stresses and failures there. Don't know if you can actually turn. No, seems fine. Tablet preferences, so you can just turn the brightness up and down. You can do a pushback. The battery connection, so in real life, the battery would have to be linked up by the ground crew. So this is how to do that. In the sim version here, we've got a little connection down there that we can actually do it ourselves. I don't know if any restored BF-109s have that for real. It would make sense if they did, I think. And that shows aileron trim. Now, the real-right aircraft doesn't have aileron trim, but it gives you a little bit of aileron trim to help you on takeoff. But like I said, I'm a masochist, so I'm going to put that to 0. And that's the tablet there. So we're going to get rid of that because don't need anything more out of that. I'm not going to use the checklist on there. I'm going to use the in-game because while I'm still getting used to the layout of the cockpit, what this allows me to do is actually look at all the different controls if I forget where any of them are. Now, it says, first of all, canopy closed. Now, I'm not sure if you have to do this in the real aeroplane or not, because I'm pretty convinced I've seen BF-109s and Bouchons and all sorts of similar aircraft taxiing around with the canopy open. So I'm going to hold it open for now, just so I can let you hear the sound of the engine when it fires up. Gear, well, landing gear is down. I can make sure we've pressed that. Throttle open 1 inch, so we're just going to crack it open past this little red zone here. Prop control to auto. This is one of those awkward things you have to kind of duck your head down for. But we are in automatique mode. Please forgive my pronunciation of any German words. I speak not a word of German, so any German speakers, please don't try to lynch me too hard. Radiator control to auto, or to open, sorry. So the radiator outlets, sorry, on this aeroplane are, I believe, electrically controlled. So bear with the freezers in the sim, by the way. I'm experiencing quite a lot of those at the moment for some reason. So these sort of vents on the back of the wings here, you'll notice when we fire up, they'll open up. They're like big clamshell type things. It just controls the flow of air through the aircraft's 2 underwing radiators here. And you can see the intake flap on here. So I'll show you those once we've fired up. But for now, we're going to change it to the open position. Don't think it's going to do anything on... Yeah, it's not going to do anything at the moment. It's going to need some power from the aircraft. So that's done. Battery is on. We've already done that. Generator circuit breaker. So we want A8 in. So the circuit breakers actually kind of double up as switches on this airplane. So we're going to hit the generator circuit breaker there. Prop, which is A12. There we go. And the starters, A21 and A22, which are these two down here. We're going to prime, so make sure we do this properly. So it says 5 when more when cold. I'm going to give it 6 for luck. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We don't need a wind to start. We're going to pull the fuel pump circuit breaker, which is 27 though. Make sure the fuel valves are on, so there we go, drawing from both tanks. Mags, so the mags are on this little lever here. We're going to put those both to on, and then we're going to hit the inertia starter. You can hear that winding up. Now apparently most BF-109s weren't fitted with an electric inertia starter. They were actually had to be cranked up by hand, but pretty much every BF-109 that's still flying around these days has been fitted one of these for convenience. So it says about 20 seconds. I'll just usually wait until the noise stops getting louder. And bear in mind, headphone users, it's about to get rather loud, so maybe turn the volume down a touch. Right. Make sure it's all wound up, and then... There we go. So what I forgot to do is to hold the toe brakes down, but never mind. That's a good engine start. Got oil pressure indicating. And I'm going to bring the throttle back to 1,000 RPM for ground idle. Normally a water-cooled aeroplane, you don't need to worry about ground idle, but with this aeroplane fouls its spark plugs, something horrible. So you need to keep the RPM up, otherwise it's just going to lunch its spark plugs. Okay, after engine start, circuit breakers all in. There we go. Oil pressure 6 to 8. I believe that's on that side, I think. Let's have a look. Ah, yes it is. So, a little bit low actually. Keep it at 1,000 RPM. It is quite warm today, so we'll deal with that. Make that go away. Fuel pressure 1.2 at 1,000 RPM. See that. Yeah, I guess it's above that, so that's good. Warm up, so we keep the oil pressure below 8 and we allow the oil to pick up some temperature. Fuel valves, so go to each fuel valve individually, make sure the engine doesn't stop. If it doesn't, then we go back to both. I'm going to shut the lid because you're probably struggling to hear what I'm saying right now. Or at least I'm struggling to hear what I'm saying. Radiator control, we test all modes. So we're open at the moment. So we can see now that the clamshells are fully opened up. And the intake at the front here is open as well. So we've got an automatic mode, which is going to, you can see it closing a bit there because the oil's quite cold. There's a closed. Obviously that's fully closed. We'll go back to open. All temps coming up a bit now. Altimeter, so I'm just going to hit B to set the altimeter. Like I said, it's in meters, so not the easiest thing to read for someone who flies around in feet and knots most of the time. Test mags, so we need 2,300 RPM. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to lock the tail wheel to stop it castering round, add a bit of back pressure on the stick, and then rev up to 2,300 RPM. There we go. Now we're looking for a max of 70 RPM drop when we try the different mags. So that's a lot more than 70, so I suspect we might have some fouling. Let's try and clear the plugs off a bit. This thing that looks like a bath tap is a device for clearing the spark plugs. There we go. And a brief throttle run-up test at 2,500, so we'll just do this for a second so we don't overheat or tip the airplane on its nose, which is easier to do than you think. There we go, back to 1,000 RPM. Jesus, right. Okay, well, I've already done a lot of this, but we'll do a little bit more. You can hear all those backfires and things. I think when they pretty much clear up, then you've got good spark plugs. So prop control to manual, so this is a bit awkward, but we'll go to there, and then what we're trying to do is to get this little clock here to read 12 o'clock. And it's unbelievably hard to do. Excuses, I know, but... There we go. Tail wheel's loose, so... yeah, that is loose. Brakes test immediately, and then we S-turn our way to the runway. So we're at Duxford, by the way, as pretty much everybody who seems to do a review flight on a Warbird ends up at. For those of you not from the UK, wondering why is everyone going to Duxford to fly Warbirds? Well, it's actually a very famous museum in the UK, which not only houses a lot of really important historic aeroplanes, it also is the headquarters of a company which restores historic aeroplanes. So there's a lot of Spitfires, Hurricanes, BF-109s, all sorts of things knocking around at Duxford on a daily basis. So it makes the most sense from an immersion point of view to come and fly one of these at Duxford if you're flying in the UK. Let me know what you think of this aeroplane and what you think of me flying it, and if you're enjoying watching me struggle away with this, I'll do a few more videos flying around different parts of the world with this thing to get a little bit more used to it. Right, let's look at the run-up check. So the canopy, I think this is the thing to make it tight. So there we go, it's tight. Tail wheel, we're not going to set that yet because we still have to pull onto the runway. Stabilizer, we need 1 notch of nose up trim. So this little thing down there is the indicator for the stab trim. Flaps to 20. So I'm just going to knock that down there, which is this wheel here. So in real life, what you could do is select whatever degree of flaps you wanted, and you would have something printed on the canopy that said like 20 degrees, so you knew what to have them set for takeoff. But in this aeroplane, it's a little bit of a cheat. You just have a 20-degree setting. Prop control to auto, so switch to auto there. Clear the plug fouling. Let's a few more loud bangs and pops just to scare any passers-by. Okay, and then on takeoff roll, aileron, strong right deflection, rudder, strong right deflection, throttle to 1.3, lift off at 170, get the gear up immediately, and then retract the flaps above 200, prop control auto. Okay, so I think I can pretty much remember that. Let's get rid of the tablet out of the way. Just making sure my spark plugs weren't dead. Okay, so let's pull onto the runway. I'm going to use the tarmac runway. I know a lot of the time with Warbirds you use the grass preferentially, but the tarmac just gives me an easier time of knowing if I'm drifting off the runway or not, so forgive me. Okay, that's mostly straight. Let's lock the tail wheel. Do one last blast of that. So I'm going to start off with full right stick and full right pedal. And hopefully, if all goes well, I'll be bringing it slowly back into the middle as we accelerate. So I'm going to go initially for about 1.1 ATA on that gauge. You can see just to the right, the attitude indicator. And then as we pass, as the tail wheel gets airborne, I'm going to increase to 1.3. I'm getting a bit of tail authority now. Tail starting to come up. I'm relaxing that pressure on the right hand aileron. There's 170. Going up. Retract the gear. That banging noise, by the way, is our leading edge, automatic leading edge flaps going away. We're above 200 now, so the flaps can start coming up. There we go, we're airborne. So the Warbird circuit at Duxford is a right-hander at 800 AGL. I have no idea I mean, I could probably work out what that is in meters, but I'm not enormously good at reading that altimeter, so what we can do is, there's actually a modern one down there that I can cheat with, some a little bit high. Start dumping some nose down trim. So you can see we're getting bashed around a bit by the thermals. It's a really hot day in the UK today, by the way. It's probably the hottest day of the year so far. So I'm not enormously surprised that we're getting smacked around all over the place. Speaking of hot, I should probably pull the engine back a little bit to just get that oil temp down a bit. With about sort of 80 or 90 degrees at the moment. Start to make a turn towards the city of Cambridge to our left there. Very famous university, of course, at Cambridge. Okay, I suppose we should start putting it through its bases and just seeing what she can do. So we're at 400 kilometers an hour here, which I think is plenty of speed. I'm just going to have a quick look out and throw her into a steep turn. She has how she turns, and the answer is very well. We're going to stop the sim from freezing. There we go. Yeah, she turns very nicely. Nice agile feel to the airplane, but it's definitely got inertia. You can feel that we aren't. Roll back out on north there. You can feel that we aren't sort of flying on rails. There's definitely a feeling that there's some weight to the aircraft, even though obviously it doesn't weigh all that much. And that coupled with having about 1,500 brake horsepower is kind of the party trick of this aeroplane. It's got an extremely high power to weight ratio. It's a bit of an interesting performance match-up between this and the FlyingIron Spitfire. Of course, they were matched up in real life many times. So yeah, the steep turn feels very good. Feels exactly what you'd expect, really. But of course, steep turns aren't anything special for an aeroplane like this, so let's do a few slightly more aerobatic maneuvers, shall we? And we'll start off with a roll. Very nice, very easy to roll this aeroplane. Trying to just pick a point on the horizon to keep the nose aimed at. You can see the two blisters on the nose. That's one of the distinctive features of the 109G, of course. Kind of makes me think of like a lady's bra or something. And I'm just trying to keep the middle of that aimed on a spot on the horizon, and then applying some rudder and some elevator pitch to keep the nose roughly pointing at that. Okay, before I get too lost, I'm going to start heading roughly back towards Duxford, where we may be able to pick up some friends. I've recruited the services of a couple of the friends of the channel to come and fly with me today, so that's really the point of these things, isn't it? It's not much fun flying one of these on your own, but if you can get some friends to come and fly in formation with you, it just transforms the experience. Definitely recommend it. Use my 430 a little bit to cheat. I am sort of familiar with this part of the world. I've done a bit of flying down here, but not for quite a while. Right. So we've done a roll. Let's try a loop, shall we? So I think there's in our checklist, there's in our useful speeds, there's actually some advice for a loop. So bear with me just one sec. A loop aerobatic, 480 minimum. Interesting. Okay. So we've almost got 480. So we'll pick up to 1.4 ATA, which is about our maximum at sea level, just to get that little bit of extra speed. Put it into a slight dive, and then start to pull into the loop. Feel that the sticks become very heavy at this speed. As we slow down, you've got to relax some of that back pressure, otherwise we are going to snap her into a stall, and she does go into a stall quite easily. We'll go for a roll off the top that time, get some speed back. Pointer back at Duxford. Sounds in the cockpit are loud, definitely, but I don't know how accurate they are. Obviously, I've never even seen a real DB601, is it, engine? BF109 fly in real life, unfortunately. All the 109s I've seen have just been Bouchons, which are 109s with Merlin engines fitted to them. So we're doing almost 600 kilometers an hour now, so that's a little fast. Oh, I'm back on the power a touch. Like I said, very, very high power to weight ratio in this aeroplane, so another freeze. Alright, there we go. So, get the power set again. Shove her in. Ooh. Get my camera to work properly. Bit of pedal to try and keep her straight. Okay, I cocked that up, but yeah, you got a bit of a spin recovery there, just for free. Let's try again, shall we? That was just more, too much stick coming over the top. So you go in with a lot of back pressure because of how heavy the aeroplane is at that sort of speed. But then you have to relax the back pressure as you're going over the top. Try not to black out. Come back on the power as you come down the back side of the loop. There we go, that'll do. It's been a while since I've flown any aerobatics. Unfortunately, my students don't enjoy it if I start looping the DA42 on our IR profiles. That was a joke. Haha, British sense of humour, so funny. Perhaps I should try being a little bit more serious given I'm flying a German plane. Right. So there you go, a little bit of impromptu spin recovery. It's actually quite easy to recover the aircraft from a spin. Certainly easier than the Spitfire is, which I think is a bit of a historical characteristic of the airplane. So it's easier to get the aircraft into a stall, but easier to get it out of back out of trouble. So not quite as user-friendly as the Spitfire, but certainly still pretty fun to fly. So that should be the field on the nose right there. Pretty much lined up perpendicular, I think, with the runway. A little fast, so pull some power off. In fact, we're actually parallel with it. So let's go straight in for a low pass. Get the power going. Now, one thing I haven't shown you is MW50. So that's methanol water 50%. Fuel injection into the supercharger, so we can go up to 1.7 ATA with that. And if the sim stops freezing, see just how much extra speed that gives us. We're passing 500 kilometers an hour now in level flight. Don't want to keep this on for too long, because I'm guessing it's probably quite stressful for the engine. But yeah, very cool that they included that. Like I said, pretty much every system that the real aircraft had or has is present in some way or other. There we go. We've dusted up the Englanders down on the floor there at Duxford. I think we should try and hook up with some of them some formation flying, don't you think? Right, you'll have noticed it's gone a lot quieter in the cockpit now, and that's because I've put my pilot's headphones on, which is probably quite good for his hearing and mine. Now, hopefully, we should have Richard knocking around here somewhere at Duxford with a Mk IX Spitfire. So, fingers crossed, he's down there somewhere. Can you see me, Rich?
Yes, sir. I can. You are 1 o'clock high.
Okay.
I still want to see you land.
What's that, sorry?
I still want to see you land, though.
Oh, yeah, don't worry, I am going to land. I say land in the loosest sense of the word. A controlled crash is probably more accurate. So yeah, as you might imagine, the 109's tricky to take off in. It's even trickier to land. In fact, I think they probably lost more 109s in landing accidents than they did in fire to the enemy. So this one is no exception. It's very true to that trait. I'm trying to treat using my that camera thing that you can point at interesting features to try and spot you. Just seems to be pointing at the ground at Duxford at the moment. If I drop out the sky at any point, by the way, it's because I've been using the MW50.
Oh dear. That is a convenient excuse, I suppose.
It is, yeah, yeah. Do you want me to just keep flying orbits, or?
I can see it.
So, for the benefit of the video, Rich is a long-time friend of the channel. He's helped out with a lot of things over the years. Because it is years now, I guess. Now we've been going for that long.
It's been a while, hasn't it? Yeah.
Rich is not a pilot in real life, but he is a very experienced simmer, and has also done his time doing various different software bits for flight sims. So he's really good with flight models, and especially things like inertia in aeroplanes, and the whole does it feel like a real plane effect, which is what people tend to get so incredibly wrong in flight sim add-on aeroplanes so often. So Rich is a pretty reliable source of advice, I guess, would be the best word.
Opinion,
yeah, opinion,
yes.
yeah. So if I think, oh, this feels quite good, what do you reckon, Rich? It's usually a good second opinion to throw in there.
Yes, it's maybe you should put the word obsessive in there somewhere.
Yeah, obsessive is a good one.
Picky, obsessive, pick one. Yes. I keep trying to be a real pilot, but it just never seems to quite happen.
Yeah, it's an extremely poor financial decision these days, isn't it?
Yes. I have minutes in a helicopter at the stick, so...
I mean, to be fair, minutes is all I'd be able to afford in a helicopter. Yeah, I've been trying to get into flight sim helicopters a little bit lately, and Rich has been helping me out with that, which was much appreciated.
Yes, we should have a good go at that.
Yeah, maybe one day we'll do a helicopter video and everyone can laugh at me crashing into the ground in various different unused attitudes. It's very weird with the headphones on, by the way. It just kind of sounds like I'm inside a air conditioner.
Of all the things to compare with, yes.
Yeah, our flight sim at work has got a big air conditioning unit in it to try and stop the students from melting with all the heat of the computers and everything. And so normally this is all I hear all day, air conditioning noises. When I'm sat in the back of the sim.
Right at home then.
Oh yeah. Are you on the runway at Dogfight, or is my camera thing just literally
No,
pointing
if
at the
you
runway?
look over your left shoulder.
Hang on. Allow me to work out how the camera works.
I'm just waiting for the plane to to do something weird as you do that.
Oh, hang on, I don't see you. Hang on. I'll go outside. Right, well, either I'm blind or you aren't showing up to me.
Well.
Hang on. Should we change servers, maybe?
Right, West Europe. So just orbit in place. I see you.
Oh, and I think my camera's actually pointing at you instead of at the runway, so I can't see you as well. We were saying earlier that my aeroplane is fitted with a top secret German teleportation device, because every time I have a freezing episode, my plane just kind of phases through the world, so it gives me a distinct advantage in a dogfight.
Sadly not reliable.
Yeah, yeah. I think we've
random teleportation.
Yeah,
yes.
we've finally found out what the bell was for.
Oh.
Have you not heard that story? The story about the German bell thing that apparently was like a levitating device.
If I have, I don't remember.
Oh, you need to look up all of your. You need to improve your knowledge of schizophrenic German World War II stories. Oh, there's an A330 lining up to take off on runway 24.
Yeah, possibly a tail-dragging A330, a rare one.
The rare tail-dragging A330. So my auto camera thing is pointing at him now, not you, so I've got no idea where you are.
About a quarter of a mile behind you.
Oh, I see.
You have company directly astern.
Thank you for keeping your nav lights on. That's very community-minded of you. So I was saying earlier as I was flying around here on my own, Rich, that it's an interesting performance comparison between these two aeroplanes, isn't it? Because the 109 is kind of has a little bit of an edge in climb and acceleration, but the Spitfire's got the turning performance advantage.
Yes, I mean the originals. I mean, as I was saying earlier, you can turn fight in a 109, but it's not. It doesn't really excel at it compared to a Spitfire.
Yeah.
So you use your power, you climb, you boom and zoom, basically. I mean, right now I am at 1 hour racing, and you're pulling away a little.
And I'm at 1.0 ATA, so I could pile a lot of power on here, and I don't even have the MW50 turned on. So, yeah, this is the kind of 109's advantage. But if you're down at low level, you've kind of already lost really with the 109, haven't you? Like you've got to do the hun in the sun thing and come down on people from above. Certainly, if you're fighting Spitfires, I suspect.
Yes, you want to bounce a Spitfire, but you know most of the 109's victories were in Russia, and they used to sneak up on attack planes and what have you.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm not the best at World War II aviation history, but I think there's more kills in 109s than anything.
Yeah, I read that. So the 109 has the most kills out of any fighter plane in history.
That would be mostly on the Eastern Front, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Plus bomber, plus Western bomber kills. But
that is an indication of the fact that it was quite a good fighter. Plus the fact that it's the only fighter to serve all the way through World War II from the start to the end, apart from the Spitfire.
yes.
So there we go. They were rivals to the very end.
I'm trying to decide which one changed more, though. I think probably the Spitfire, to be honest.
Yeah, the Spitfire got the Griffin, and
the final model of Spitfires were about twice the weight, for one thing.
yeah. Well, the Mark 24 wasn't much good, was it?
That was the one with the new wing, I believe, was
Yeah,
it?
I
Which
think
they
so.
didn't put any money in. They were just into jets, so...
Yeah. I think the, I don't know, my favourite's the Mark 14 when it comes to Spitfires.
Yeah, the Griffin, which was...
It's basically a Mark 9 with a Griffin engine shoved in the front.
which is Eric Brown's favourite, too, so...
Ah.
in
I've got good
company.
taste. Good taste, clearly.
Yes. Well, if he likes it, of all the people in the world, I would take his recommendations for a good aircraft. Don't go left without telling me, by the way.
Okay, okay. Oh, hang on. Are you out there?
Well, let's see if you can see me this time.
Oh, hang on. Let me...
And you just disappeared.
I'm trying to film you and fly straight and level at the same time. It's not easy.
That's why I suggested getting a camera plane, but I don't. They'd have to send me the footage.
Yeah, our camera plane was Australian, so unfortunately he's had to go to bed. But
I mean, all the footage is upside down anyway. So.
yeah, true, true. Right. Ooh, I guess. Where the hell are we?
This is not a day for close formation flying.
Not really.
This turbulence is incredible.
But I don't think it's over the top from what
No,
you would
no,
have on a
it's-
day like today. I think it's pretty spot on, really. It rides the turbines like some aeroplanes. I'm going left, by the way. Some aeroplanes
Surprise!
in the Microsoft Flight Simulator turbulence tend to get smashed around all over the place, whereas this is actually really quite nice to fly, despite the fact it's a really bumpy day.
Yeah, and there is a simple reason for that. I don't really want to have a rant right now.
Oh no, let's not start him up.
No, it's because there's a stability setting which makes the aircraft handle worse in turbulence.
Yeah.
And you can see why, because it tries to point it into the turbulence all the time.
I'm going to roll wings level there, and we'll do a pass over the top of the hangars, I guess, and left-hand brake into a run and brake.
Copy.
How did you respawn in a BF-109 so instantly, by the way?
I didn't. You have another wingman.
Ah, okay.
And there's Spitfire on your left side.
I thought that was you. Fair enough. I've just picked up a
This is
random
why you've been
wingman.
turning into me all the time, I guess.
Probably, yeah. Right, okay, so pass over the hangars. I'm going to brake left once we've crossed the runway, and then do a run and brake down the runway.
Braking over your head right now.
Okay. This is what we were saying earlier about, this is what Microsoft Flight Simulator is so good at, being this thing that you can play online with your friends in all sorts of different types of airplanes in real world scenery. This is kind of the most, for me personally, this is the most fun you can have in this game.
Yes, and especially ducks are, if you want to fly a warbird, there's always people there.
Yeah, yeah.
Ducks are on Western Europe at least. I don't know about other servers, but it's just like you'll go there. There's always people. There'd be like 10 people flying, whatever around. You can always find somebody to try and form 8 on. Traffic from the right.
Roger.
Crossing. Oh, that's head-on traffic from the right, in fact.
Jesus. I've just realised I'm doing the wrong circuit. Oh well. I've turned from a warbird into a PA-28. It's fine. Right. Okay. I'm gonna have a go at landing. So have your popcorn ready. Below 300 kilometers an hour, we want our gear down. So let's get the speed back a bit. Clear any spark plug fouling, of which we have a bit. Bang, bang. Okay, gear down and radiators to... if I can remember, there we go, that's open. And flaps to 20 degrees, below 250. So the flap system on the 109 is a fair bit more advanced than the Spitfire, which just kind of has things that drop down at 90 degrees from the wing and don't really provide you with any extra lift. So you do actually get a bit of lift out of the 20 degree setting. The full flap setting is a bit of a barn door though, so it will kind of drop out of the sky with full flap. As I attempt to not drop out of the sky as we speak. So I've let it come out a little bit too wide, so ideally you want to be kind of approaching the runway at an angle so you can actually keep it in your windscreen. Fly a curved approach. I've kind of flown a regular aircraft approach because, surprise, surprise, I'm a regular aircraft pilot. But with the crosswind that we've got here today, that's probably going to work out for me because I just allow it to blow me across onto the runway. And the key thing with any aircraft like this is don't land it with any kind of crab. Try not to use crabbing at all, just kind of wing down it. And it's going to freeze at the absolute inopportune moment now. I'm a bit fast. You want to be sort of 170 kilometers an hour coming over the numbers, and I'm going to float very long here, but in fact now I'm going to crash.
I was about to say go around. But...
yeah, that was never going to work. Okay, so post commentary Kitty here with a quick note. I'm going to stand by that approach and touchdown. I thought that was actually quite good. The reason I crashed is that, as you may have noticed, I'd had a gear failure and hadn't realised. So the aircraft immediately went over on its wing as it touched down. Now that's not the first time I've had that in this aeroplane. It does it fairly often. So be really careful to check you've got 2 green lights when you crank the gear down, because quite often the failure system throws you a landing gear failure and you've got to pull the emergency gear extension to get the gear to drop for you. So I'm not bad, I'm just stupid. That wasn't a bad takeoff.
It looked pretty good from the sidelines.
I shall now attempt to prove that I am not a complete idiot and that I can in fact land this aeroplane. To be fair, while we were practicing, I think I landed it about 3 or 4 times without dying in a row. So It's just, you know, it's just pressure being on film.
Next up, having a functional aeroplane at the end of it.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you how strong the wind is. It just blew the plane on its nose without me. I had full backstick on.
Amazing.
That's back trim, back stick. Pick the tail up.
I'm looking out my window, and the tree outside my window is blowing all over the place, so I think that is about accurate. Although I am quite a long way from Duxford, so who knows? I'll do one low pass and then I'll go into the circuits allowed. Can't see anyone on the ground. Oh no, I can. Is that you? Just taking off on the grass?
Negative. That is another 109, I think.
Oh, right. He's using the wrong runway. It's brave of him.
He's trying to land rather than take off. He's landing downwind, so...
Yeah, that high touchdown speed, that's exactly what you want in an aircraft with the undercarriage track of a roller skate.
Oh, they didn't end up in the bank, so that's something.
He did better than me then. Gear down to green. Flap select 20.
Metaf, Duxford says 30C and 18 to 28 knots.
Bloody hell, okay.
I might explain the bumpy.
I'm smacked around all over the place, and obviously when you get your flaps out, it makes it even worse. Alright, this is looking like a slightly more sensible approach, so it's coming in from the angle here. I've got this quartering crosswind, quartering headwind, I guess, off the left-hand side of the aeroplane, so it's going to push us tight as we come around this turn, so I can afford to leave it fairly late. So I'm getting the speed back now because we're really quite fast. And apparently the technique is a three-pointer, which is not normally what I've seen warbirds do, but I'll bow to their superior judgment. Oh my! Oh, I thought I landed, and I sort of made a premature judgment about how fantastic my landing was. I've got to bounce 28 times now. There we go. That's better.
Oh, the initial touchdown was pretty good.
Touchdown was perfect, but it decided it didn't quite want to stop flying just yet.
Yes,
okay,
I think you may have to get used to the speedo. So.
Yeah, maybe a bit.
So the ASIs would be proper about it, but whatever.
To be fair, I mean, most warbird landings involve a few bouncers, don't they? So
yes,
I'll give myself a little bit of the benefit of the doubt there.
Watching Duxford footage from the other day, actually, and there was a hurricanes coming in and bouncing for about half the runway length.
Yeah.
So.
Especially in these sorts of wind conditions, I think you'd probably forgive yourself a little bit for having a bit of a bouncy time. One of the things taxiing, by the way, if any of you watching have a head tracker, then I'm incredibly jealous of you, because I would love one to be able to kind of lean my head left and right and see a bit better. For any of you familiar with warbirds, you know that the correct technique is to S-turn, kind of go along the taxiway in a kind of slalom to see where you're going. But it helps enormously if you can sort of lean your head left or right as you're doing that. The strong crosswind is not helping with the trickiness of the taxi, nor is the fact that you have to keep the power setting quite high in this aeroplane to stop the spark plugs from destroying themselves. So it always kind of runs away with you. I was saying earlier to Rich, one of the things that I always whine at my students for is riding the brakes during taxi, but you kind of have to do it in this aeroplane, so do as I say, not as I do.
Oh, well, I mean, when you start teaching the ME 109, then
yeah,
you can change your tone a bit.
Yes, if anyone does want to hire me as an ME 109 instructor, then please get in touch with the channel. I've got a tail wheel rating. It's on a Tiger Moth. So yeah, as I was trying to land there, what I was trying to describe as a 3-point touchdown, but I was obviously a little bit situation saturated at the time. So a 3-point touchdown is when all three wheels touch at the same time. So you land in a much more nose-high attitude. What I usually see warbirds do is what's called a wheeler landing, which is where you touch down just on the main gear and then you allow the tail to settle. And like I said, it does say in the instruction manual for this airplane to aim for a 3-point landing. So maybe that's the right thing to do with a 109. I don't know. Maybe try both methods and see what you think.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the problem with touching down main wheels first is that if you touch down too hard, the tail goes down and you're back in the air again. But
yeah. I'm going to park with my tail to these lovely museum piece aeroplanes here because it's going to be more sort of into wind. Scenery, by the way, is completely free. If you've not got it, then why the hell haven't you? It's very, very good. It's clearly an absolute labour of love for the chap who made it. So, very much recommend going and getting yourself a copy of this. It's certainly worth the few megabytes on your hard drive that it's going to take up. It's certainly not going to cost you anything else. Right, let's shut things down, shall we? So, yeah, we've done all of this stuff. Oh, stabilizer apparently needs to go back to 0%. Trim, there we go. A27 and A28 circuit breakers we pull, so we push those little red buttons to get rid of those. That turns the radio kit off. One last clearing of the spark plugs. Oh, that sounds pretty clean actually. And then we close the radiators. Idle throttle for 30 seconds. Clear spark plug ploughing as needed. There we go. And then we've got this yellow lever just to the right of the throttle that we're going to pull, and that's going to shut the engine down. Okay, so throttle's closed, mags can go off, so it's stopped freezing on me. There we go. Fuel valve goes to the off position, which is all the way back. Circuit breakers, so we can hit this circuit breaker here, which will pop all of them out. Oxygen wasn't on anyway, and the canopy can now go open. There we go. Right. So, despite the dodgy flying, I hope that was a good representation of this aeroplane, and if you are thinking of picking it up, a good what the? Is that a helicopter? It's either a helicopter or a plane that thinks it's a helicopter. I've got a Bonanza hovering over the top of the hangars.
That's, yeah, there's a H145 somewhere.
Ah, okay, cool. Right, so yeah, from what I've experienced with this aeroplane, I've not had it for long. I've just been kind of bashing around in it over the last couple of days. I'm really, really impressed. I think it's a fantastic aircraft. It's a lot of fun to fly. It's a big challenge to get your head around all the different systems, and also just the challenge of flying a very, very high performance tail wheel airplane with these tiny landing gear. It's a real challenge to get your brain around that. So if you think you've been there and done that in Microsoft Flight Simulator, maybe this is the airplane for you, just as something to get in there and have a go with. It's certainly an interesting comparison to the Spitfire. If you've got the Spitfire, if you're a fan of the Spitfire, then I recommend picking this up, just so you can see what its chief rival was like to fly, and how it kind of matches up to the Spitfire. Overall, yeah, I'd really recommend this. It's not particularly expensive. I think it's about 30 something pounds, Rich. It's about 45 Australian dollars, I believe. Their websites, Flying Iron's website's all in Australian dollars. I don't know if. Do you know off the top of your head, Rich? What is it?
I don't. I can look it up quickly.
The invoice from PayPal. Oh, it just says 45 Australian dollars. Never mind. I'll put it on the screen. But yeah, it's not mega expensive, and for something that's as in-depth as this is, I think it's a really, really sensible and reasonable price point. If you're a warbird enthusiast, if you're a old aeroplane enthusiast, anything like that, then this is certainly something to pick up. Niggles, the engine can be a little sort of finicky. I've had a couple of situations where the engine's kind of failed on me. I've been through the tablet to check if anything's showing up as broken or worn out or what have you. There was nothing on there, and yet the engine just kind of died and wouldn't restart. So not sure if that's a bug or just me being smooth-brained. It could be either. But there's potentially a couple of little bugs with the maintenance system. The thermal model of the engine is apparently very, very complex, and how it heats up and cools down, all that kind of stuff, and all the different modeling of all the different elements on there that can wear out and break. So inevitably there might be a couple of little bugs with that just as the airplane goes through its first iteration in the simulation. They'll come back and they'll fix the bugs, I'm sure, because Flying Iron are really good at coming back and supporting their older products. The Spitfire gets updates all the time, so I can certainly trust them on that front. The other thing that kind of annoys me quite a lot is the pilot avatar. So I don't know I think there are mods that you can get that come with third-party add-on colour schemes, of which there aren't that many out there yet, because it's a fairly new aeroplane, but they will usually come with a World War II pilot avatar. The Spitfire has a little option on its EFB where you can change from a modern pilot to a period accurate one. I would really appreciate that on this aeroplane, because at the moment flying around in your gorgeous looking BF-109 with this cool dude in his regular headset and a baseball cap is a little bit unrealistic as far as I'm concerned. You definitely want a flying suit on an aeroplane like this, of which is such an enormous fire hazard. And we worked out earlier, didn't we, Rich, that the pilot actually sits on a fuel tank.
Yes.
So if you're sitting on a load of high-octane aviation fuel, you probably wouldn't want to be wearing a leather jacket and a pair of jeans. You'd probably want a fire-retardant flying suit on, and you'd probably want a headset or a flying cap of some kind as well, because inevitably you're going to want to throw this aeroplane around a lot. And given that I have flown an aerobatics aircraft, trying to wear a standard headset like this doesn't work very well. It inevitably falls off your head at some point. So I very much doubt somebody's going to go flying around in a warbird dressed like this. So that kind of is my chief niggle really at the moment, and given that it's such a pedantic little niggle, it shows just how good the aeroplane is. Would you want to add anything to that, Rich?
It's still too new to me, so no, not really. I'd recommend it, I think.
Good.
Unless you really hate the aircraft, but yes.
Yeah, obviously.
If you like warbirds in general, you know, and if you've got another Flying Iron product, you know what to expect from them. It's pretty much as good as it gets at the moment, so yes.
Yeah.
Recommended.
Good conclusion. Right, so recommended from the both of us. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider giving it a like, maybe even subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. I've been extremely busy with work at the moment, so I'm sorry for the lack of content lately. Hopefully when the next...
I know, it's terrible. He's like sleeping and you know, unnecessary stuff.
Sleeping and eating and those kinds of things, you know. I mean, I'm working, I work
Such
5
a
days
slacker.
a week, and yeah. I've been doing some really late nights lately, so unfortunately I've not really had much time to dedicate to the channel. Jimbo and Wallace have both started new jobs with different airlines, so they're both incredibly busy at the moment. So they don't really have much time to put to it either. So we're all really busy, but fingers crossed I'll be able to bring you some more content soon. So tune in next time, and take care. Bye-bye.